Well, good afternoon, friends. Good afternoon. How are you doing today? Hope you are well and hope you are having a wonderful day. And today we have a fantastic friend joining us from Edmonton, in fact. And we have David Papp joining us. David, can you still hear me in the green room there, my friend? Wonderful. Well, you're in for a treat today, folks. We're going to talk about technology, technology, and more technology. And certainly in the context of a modern online world here, technology is an important part of our lives, love it or hate it. Technology does play a big role in our lives these days. And so we're going to hear from David for the next hour here. So folks, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Dune and Friends. Today we, again, coming to you here live again, and feel free to engage with our guest today in the comment section of the Facebook Live video here, folks. The more of you who chimed in, the more we can have insights that perhaps might be beneficial to you specifically. Ask him a question, put him on a hot seat if you like, not too hot though. But first, let's get a bit of an introduction so that you get a sense of who it is that you're hearing from for the next hour or so here. David Papp, P.Eng, tech expert. David is a tech pioneer specializing in technology management, cybersecurity, and privacy, and online marketing. He is well-recognized in all things tech, with a degree in computer engineering and numerous industry certification. He has established his reputation over the 25 years of professional field management, experience management. And he has been involved in the creation of many data centers and throughout Canada over the past 23 years. And helped pioneer commercial internet in the 90s. And he survived the dotcom bubble as a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, of a mining company in 2014, of a public TSXV listed company, and started crypto mining in 2014. Now, he spends his time helping businesses embrace technology to thrive in the online world. His popularity as an everyday tech expert has made him popular media resource and garnered many followers. David is also a professional speaker, author, entrepreneur, and network and security consultant. For more information on David, please check out his website at www.davidpapp.com. So with that wonderful introduction, friends, please help me in welcoming our wonderful guest today, Mr. David Papp. How are you doing today, my friend?
Good, Govin, all things considered.
Now, interestingly enough, I say, you're from Edmonton, and that's correct. Yeah, your office is in Edmonton, but you're not too far from where I am in Sherwood Park, right?
Probably not.
Yeah. So tell us more, David. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to discuss all kinds of technology stuff, and we're going to respond to the viewers in their comments and questions. And so folks, again, the more you chime in, the more this show is made for you. But David and I are going to have lots of fun regardless. But more fun if you joined us. So David, give us an expanded introduction, my friend. Where were you born and how did you get to this point? Give it a longer version than that bio. Tell us some stories. How'd you get here?
I'm 100% Edmontonian. Love to travel, though. Unfortunately, not so much during these current global conditions. But I've had a passion for computers ever since personal computers first came out when I was a child. And it was an absolute fascination. So then as this progressed, I started in the days where it was like you were hooked up to a black and white TV, like we used to call it the boob tube. They were massive, huge boat anchors. And you had this computer that you cobbled together. And if you wanted to load or save a program, you had to use a cassette tape and you had to fast forward to the point where you wanted to get your program loaded in the limited amount of memory you had. And then eventually we got into these hard drives where we could store information and my mind was blown. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I could possibly need that sheer amount of space that we had, 5 megabytes. It was massive. And then I decided to enroll myself into a computer engineering degree at the University of Alberta, which back then would have been a fairly newish program. Computer engineers, at least from the U of A's perspective, are essentially electrical engineers where all of your core electives are the core subject matter of computing science. So it's sort of like 2 degrees in one. You've got the software side and you've got the hardware side. And I was always intrigued by putting together used computers because back then affording a personal computer was extremely expensive. And you would put it together with used computer parts. And I would even do in the early days, we used to do some computer gaming on those computers because I had very rudimentary network cards that I used to put in play. Like I'm talking coax cable, and I learned to crimp them myself. And you had to run special software in order for the computers to talk. It was like, but it was so much fun. Like it was just mind boggling. And then when I went to engineering at the U of A, my mind suddenly completely went beyond what I was used to. Like I was involved in bulletin board systems, BBSs, where we'd use a modem in order to connect to pass files and messages, and you'd have a community of people that you would participate in. But the interesting thing there is it was kind of slow and only one person could connect at once. And then the internet was in one of my labs. I mean, this is pre-commercial internet. This is before everybody even knew what the internet was because all the educational networks were tapped into it. And I was transferring a file from what's called an FTP server in Japan. And I was connected to it and it was live. And the file came across to my Unix computer account in the lab that I was working in. And my mind, it was like one of those moments, Dune, where it was like, like, I can't believe this. Like, this is incredible. I didn't have to pay. It was fast. It was live. I transferred these files. And to me, that just became like, that was the future. Mm-hmm. I was like, I want to get into this thing. I kind of called it back then. It's sort of a popular term now, internetworking. So it was like a twist of networks of networks. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, it was that was the birth of me wanting to understand not just putting things together physically, but how does it work with the software? How do you manage these things? There was no, and I always jokingly say, we never had any dummies book on how to do this, how to how to set up a network for dummies, how to set up your computer for dummies, how to set up an internet service provider for dummies didn't exist. It was the Wild West. Like, we had to figure it out ourselves, and we were hacking code and making changes to software in order to stay at the forefront. I mean, this is before you even had a web browser. Never existed. This is before you even had the ability for the World Wide Web. Like, it wasn't there, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Hey, David, just a quick tech thing. I see that your volume could be probably down about 10-15%. All the excitement that you have there is sending the sound genie over the edge just ever so slightly. So if you can have it down by 10-15%, that'd be great. So that's I have a similar kind of experience with technology back in I guess the mid 80s, right? I don't know what your first computer was, but mine it was the Tandy, one of those TRS-80 Coco 2.
TRS-80, that's what it was. The Tandy right at Radio Shack.
Yeah. So again, now one of the things that I know about you that I really appreciate is that you are very pragmatic. In fact, you like to keep things simple. In fact, you like to, because some of the technology folks go over the edge. And at times I can be one of those guys. At times I can be one of those guys that go really to the far extreme. Now, thankfully, over the years, I've learned to kind of come back from there. But you are very pragmatic. So as you give advice to people, you have all this deep background and deep kind of technology thing, but you always temper it with your audience, if you will. Tell us a bit more about when you discover that. Was that always there, or were you kind of like me way back when?
If I go back in time, and one of the reasons I feel contributed to my success is the ability to what I call bridge the gap. And bridging the gap is being able to take technical terms and bridge the gap over to layman's terms and general understanding of where people are at with their knowledge and what it can do for them. It's not how does the technology work. Some people get too caught up in the details. They want to understand exactly how the technology works and what is it doing in the background. And honestly, they're going too far. They need to understand, what can it do for them? How does it make something easier for them? And then, as you alluded, the more moving parts that you have, more cogs in the wheel, the more things that can go wrong and break. And people get very frustrated with technology when it doesn't do what they expect. And the problem with technology is there's always updates. There's always new software. There's always moving parts. We're connecting a million wires. I have so many USB devices connected to my computer. It's ridiculous. And they can conflict with each other and cause problems. Even when we go into your green room and we set up things like this with Zoom, I have to make sure it's got the right camera and the right microphone and the right output for speakers, which isn't always the case. These things get changed. The defaults get played with. And it could be frustrating to people, especially if you have lots of those things and you don't understand it. So that's sort of where I understand, and I loved being a professional engineer, like a computer engineer, where it's like seeing the forest from the trees. Like you have this high view of everything. And I do have enough personal knowledge to understand the details, and I do have some specializations. But there aren't many people who can actually understand the big picture and say, here is your problem. Here's where you should improve something. Don't spend money here. Go and do this first. Get better at this part. Because I don't think it's always about having the shiny new blue LEDs. That's not always the solution, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you, and believe me, I certainly appreciate that about you. Again, the idea of again, learn all you need to learn about your craft, but do not inflict all of your knowledge on your customers.
We're seeing that now, actually, Dune, more than ever. It's these people with their, what we'll call it, with their Zoom setups, right? And what's happening, I'm noticing, and it's difficult to hold back sometimes and not comment on the situation, where there's some very professional people. They're very high in their game, and their audio sounds like garbage. Their video looks crappy, or they're trying to do some green screen thing in the background, and you can see their hair and their clothes, and it's shimmering, and it just looks unnatural, and it's very difficult to pay attention to the message that they're delivering when they're not even focusing on the basics. And that's why I keep saying, yes, we can do these mixers and we can do different sources and lights and all of this stuff, but truly focus on the basics. And sometimes the basics is just a matter of getting a more current computer. Like, because a lot of people are using the built-in microphone or webcams in their laptop or whatever device they're using. And the computer, if it doesn't have enough horsepower, like it's not current enough, or there's too much going on, their audio gets out of sync with their video, right? And that's very weird too, to watch somebody's lips moving and it doesn't have anything to do with the message that you're hearing. In fact, you can't even look at it because it just throws you off.
Yeah, let me demonstrate. 1, 2, 3. So yeah, you're right. So again, what I find is that every piece that you add on, it's like yes, you get the benefits, but you also get the liability. No different than having 4 cars versus 1 car. You got 4 cars to maintain, 4 cars to on that. On and on and on, right? So every piece of equipment is a liability as well that we have to kind of take care of, I guess.
It is. One of the most common questions I have is Android or iPhone? Like, honestly, it's a very, very common question. My answer is, what do your friends and family use? Like, honestly, they're going to be your tech support. They're going to be the people you're going to go to. They're the people that you're interacting with, communicating with the messages and the technology and helping you out. Use what they use. Don't try to be different, and because you're just going to feel alone and you're going to feel stuck and frustrated.
Yeah. I'm just watching your level coming in on my mixer here. It is definitely better, and so you're not clipping at the top there anymore. So again, doesn't matter how good of a setup you have. David actually planned this so that he can demonstrate how you have to adjust and monitor. I'm looking over here to my lights on the left here, and right now you could probably be up about 5% from where you were, David. And again, because you're a tech guy, I can feel free saying that throughout our conversation here, just to demonstrate to the folks that technology is not a set it and forget it. It might have worked fine yesterday, but today something else has changed. My mixer died last night actually, so thankfully I have a lot of mixers, so brought another one up. But and then the software, as you mentioned, things will be working fine, and you update the Windows software, and the Windows software in this case doesn't like my old drivers that I had in there. So, and the sound, here's the thing: if it stopped working, I would have known right away, but it didn't stop working. It was unreliable. It was getting introduced some artifacts here and there, and you're left on guessing. Is it my microphone? Is it my preamp? Is it the internet? Is it BeLive software? Is it Facebook? Is it your end? Is it my end? The more components you have, the more you have to kind of troubleshoot and find out. And I did find it last night, so thankful for that. So David, tell us. You've done a lot of things. So tell us about MTech. MTech is a wonderful company. You told about how you kind of started back really in your basement and all of that stuff. Tell us about the evolution of MTech, my friend.
Well, throughout time, I've been involved as an entrepreneur, starting up in many different companies. Throughout all of that, I've always had my core main consulting company that I've used, which has had staff off and on and has sold products off and on, and has had many pivot points, which, funny enough, these days it's almost like a new term that people have heard because of COVID and having to pivot their businesses in a different direction, for curbside pickup, online ordering, that kind of stuff. But honestly, I've had very clear-cut pivot points throughout life, some of them within my control and some of them without my control. And you always look in hindsight and you go, wow, that was a great thing. So, in history, I got involved in doing used computers for people, and I wanted to make sure that I could put some stuff, and it was fueling my hobby. Like I would use those funds that I got out of that and the profits and reinvest it into my own computer equipment. And then in the close to early to mid 90s, I decided that I was going to start up a internet service provider. And again, this is before internet service providers were a thing. This is when you had modems, you know, that screeching fax sound that you hear. When it connected, it was kind of slow. In fact, you could type sometimes faster than your modem could transmit data. This was the birth of the internet in the 90s. And really, here in Western Canada, it was kind of, you know, we'll say TELUS and some other companies, mostly TELUS, that sort of pushed and commercialized with huge billboard campaigns on getting people to say you needed to be online, get an email address, you know, get a website. This is before people even, everybody had a fax number back then. So like, and they wouldn't even dream of, why do I need to be on the internet? Is this even something that I need? And so that was kind of the late 90s, is going through all of this. And then in 2000, there was a craze that occurred. Some people don't actually connect with that, especially the current younger generation. For the year 2000, we had a couple things. Number one, we had the Y2K compliance scare. But more importantly, it was the fact that you could go up to almost anybody who didn't understand anything about technology. You could scroll something down on a paper napkin and they would give you money and invest in you, in your idea, because everybody thought tech was just exploding. And the valuations of companies were going through the roof. Like, it had no substance to it. It's not because they had any user acquisition or any product or any footprint. It was because you had this great idea and a cool name, and your valuation of your company was in the millions, hundreds of millions. It was ridiculous. And then this dot-com bubble burst occurred. Like, it was like pop, and then boom, and the stocks went down for all these companies. The valuations went in the toilet. A lot of people lost their golden jobs. Like, there were jobs where you'd go to the office, they'd do your dry cleaning, they'd cook, you'd have all the meals, you could help yourself to food, you could order stuff, like you could get your car washed while you were at work. You had sleeping rooms that you could go in and have a nap. Like, it was just crazy, the stuff that you would see in these businesses that were occurring all over because of this .com. So I decided at that point, this was early 2000s on, and this is a hard lesson to be learned when you're an entrepreneur. I call it the whale harpoon syndrome. Most people, when they're starting a new business, walk around with this big, huge bazooka, and they're trying to land the big deal. They put all of their energy into these big deals. They think it's going to be totally awesome, and it doesn't happen. Or it takes forever, or the scope changes on it, or those companies never pay, and it will kill people. Like, they just don't survive that first year of being in business, because they're focusing all of their energy into something that is high risk from a business standpoint. It's got too many issues. So what I say is, you got to focus on MRR. MRR is monthly recurring revenue. This is something that a lot of industries, have established industries, like, let's say, the insurance industry, has learned very well, or your not just in your health providers or anything, where you've got monthly payments that you're making. You know how much is coming in from your clients, and you can live off of that. It pays your mortgage, it pays for your staff salary, it pays the payroll, it puts food on the table, and then you can take that extra energy that you have and invest it in some higher risk, larger projects. Like, you can start working on your own ideas. You can try to land some bigger fish when it comes to businesses or clients, but you need to focus on MRR. So the next problem that people have, I found in technology, and this is kind of me with my consulting experience, is you think that your time is worth a crazy amount. You think you're worth $50 an hour, $100 an hour, $300 an hour, $500 an hour, whatever it is that you think you're worth. And you almost feel like you're undermining yourself by giving a good deal to a client for your time, when really, in fact, you should be concentrating on monthly recurring revenue and getting regular revenue coming in. And you give them such a good deal that they are never going to leave you, because it's so cheap what that you're giving you. But you can count on the fact that you've got $500 a month or $100 a month or whatever it is coming in every single month from that client, and you build your client base that way, and that's how you grow your business. So I started focusing on that in tech by providing help desk services to companies where they couldn't afford a full-time technician on staff. But by then, in the early 2000s, everybody had these computers and networks, and they were getting on the internet, and they needed that kind of help. So I started building up that client base. And then around the year 2007, 2008, I decided I had another pivot point. And this pivot point was, geez, I am so tired of being on call with technical support, because even though it made it clear with my customers that they were only paying for Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 support, and it was limited support, you'd still get these emergencies that they would call you on a Saturday because their email broke and it's your fault because you were the last person who touched their computer. So you must have been responsible for causing this problem with their mouse or their email, because people just really didn't understand technology. And they would always tell me about, I always laugh, these $1 million deals that this email had to go through on a Saturday at noon. I'm like, why are you doing that over email? And what are you talking about, $1 million deal when you're paying me $100 for this support? Anyways, besides the point, it got very tiring being on call. So my pivot at that point was I really enjoyed getting into online marketing. And back then it was more web design, web development, custom web apps, branding, corporate branding, logos, business cards, that kind of stuff. And I really enjoyed that aspect because it was helping people have a better presence online on the internet, number one. But number two, it really was a 9 to 5 business. So when it was 5 o'clock, my staff went home, I went home. You really didn't have any emergencies. You'd come back the next day at 9 a.m. and you'd start work. And it was a lifestyle change. And that's something that I would caution a lot of people when they choose. They don't teach you this in high school. I don't know why, but it's seriously, it's what are the requirements of when you choose a career? What does it look like? Like, are you going to be working 80-hour weeks? Do you need to be working on weekends? What are your holiday times? That's why teaching was so awesome in retrospect. And I never knew this. Honestly, I didn't know this until late, that you get your summers off and you could spend that with your kid. Like 2 months is unheard of in most careers. Most people get 2 weeks. That's it. And the vacation days are precious. And so with IT, if you're on call, that's a whole other thing. It's kind of like the medical profession and being these ridiculous things when you go into be on practicums and you get to go into, excuse me, residencies where you're doing these weird sleep shifts. You're on, like, you have projects in IT where we were working over weekends because people wanted you to do the work and the upgrades after hours when the staff weren't there. So it's something that I want to tell people as a word of advice is, what does this career path you're choosing look like? And what is going to be the expectation for holiday time, for how many hours you have to put in? Do you need to be on call? Do you have somebody to back you up? And so by me going into this new online marketing path, it really was a shift in lifestyle. And then I did another shift, which was about, my last pivot was, we'll say about 4 or 5 years ago. And that pivot was really focusing heavy into video. Now, in video, not as video production, because when you hear video production, you think $20,000, it's so expensive, it's past my budget. I'm talking about video content, using video as a capture mechanism like we're doing right now. This is unscripted. We're using basic technology, like this is not crazy studio gear technology, but we're creating content. And this content is not just, if people don't realize, it's evergreen content. It's not just going to live right now for the moment of people who are watching us live in this session, and then it's gone and it fizzles into the sunset. No, it's something that you could repurpose. It's going to be available. You could put it on your YouTube channel. You could put it, it'll be on Facebook in your video library. People can link to it. You could transcribe my audio right now and get a whole bunch of text that you could turn into a blog post, into a little booklet or an ebook. Like the crazy thing with content and using, excuse me, video as a capture mechanism is the crazy amount of possibilities that you could do to repurpose that content and use it. And here's a case in point. When I go up and we build a new website for a lot of clients, the number one stumbling block we have is content. People don't know how to describe their business. They don't know how to put it words. In fact, they're so busy running their business, they don't even want to sit down and take the time to write out these web pages. But I can't really write the web pages for them because I don't know your business. I don't know what brands you carry and what products and services and what your favorite is. However, using video as a capture mechanism, which we've been doing successfully, where I interview somebody within the company or the business owner or multiple staff, and then we take those video clips and we use that to build and populate the website, to drip out videos on different platforms. That is massively powerful. And people love video interviews like this because it's unscripted, it's very conversational, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, you don't have to worry about stumbling and me saying, geez, let me think about that. That's a good question, Dune. I'm glad you asked that. It's part of the conversation. Conversations with Dune. Like, it's awesome. In fact, you didn't even give me any talking points or anything during this podcast.
We're just chatting.
Just chatting. And that's what's so awesome about using video and audio as a capture mechanism for this stuff. So people wonder, why do that? Well, here's one thing that I've learned. If you write a book, you're an expert on the subject. And I guarantee most people haven't even read your book. They haven't validated the information within, seen if it's even relevant. But you wrote the book, and the book's title says, for me, cybersecurity. So therefore, I'm an expert in cybersecurity because, look, I've got a book. And it was a validation process. So I'm using the same kind of process to help businesses establish themselves online for their content. So let's say you're an HVAC company and you're really good at hot water tanks and furnaces and air conditioning systems, and you install that, but you're trying to figure out, well, it's kind of a boring topic and people online don't really know anything about it. But that's not true. I could interview you as the owner, as somebody within the company, and say, what is the longevity of a hot water tank? And what's the first thing that can go on it? Oh, it's this dipstick thing. And there's corrosion, anodization. You could get into some tech. And how long do I know? And how do I know how much capacity is? And what about on demand versus, all high capacity versus a high performance? And what are the energy savings that I could do on that? And what about my furnace? And should I have an air conditioning unit? Well, one thing you learn with air conditioning units is you don't need it in your basement. You only need it on your main floor, your second floor. Maybe you only need it in your bedroom because you can just get away with one of those window units. So if I interview you on all of these things and I take these nuggets and I start dripping it out, this is what we call dripping content, on a different platform such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, blog posts on your website, people will suddenly see these topics show up on their feed. Now, I'm a very busy guy. I'm looking at my phone and I'm scrolling the timeline when it comes to LinkedIn and Facebook, because there's a lot of stuff going on and everybody's vying for my, my presence when I'm looking at it, and they want me to click on things and like things and heart things and comment on things. But the fact of the matter is, when I scroll by and I see a post or a video that says how to save money on your air conditioning, when should you replace your hot water tank, using the same example here, and I see the post is by Dune, all of a sudden, over time, I didn't click on it, I didn't look at it, I didn't watch the video, I didn't read the blog. But over time, I'm going to associate Dune with air conditioning units, Dune with hot water tanks. And over time, Dune, in my mind, is an expert in those. So when the situation and time comes that my hot water tank fails, or I'm like, screw this, I need to do something about my furnace, I'm tired of this, my energy bill is too high, I might actually reach out to Dune because I keep seeing his posts once a week, once a day, once a month. And you've established trust with me. I now trust Dune to be an expert on this because I see his name associated with these topics. That's content marketing. That is how you do it, by giving away advice for free. You're not selling to the people. Do not say, come to me, I'm totally awesome, buy from my business, 50% off. We've been in business for 50 years. I hate that on a website. If I go to a website and the first thing you see on the web page, on the homepage, is we've been in business for 55 years. We're totally awesome. I'm not searching for that. I'm searching because I have a problem. and I need a solution to my problem. Do you have a solution? So many people out there, the best of advice is give away your best advice for free. Give away your best tips. Establish yourself as an expert in the field so that when somebody comes looking for a problem or a solution to their problem, they'll think of you and they'll reach out. You wouldn't believe the number of people who reply to my posts or my emails or my blogs, and I know they never read it. It has nothing to do with the blog post, but they're like, hey, David, I was thinking about you. By the way, we got a new project next week that we're working on. Could I get some help, or could we go for lunch or coffee or have a call or whatever, or have a Zoom? Like, it's unbelievable because you reminded them that you still exist in their busy ecosystem at that point. And you reminded them that, hey, they could reach out to you. You made it easy because all they had to do was press reply or comment or whatever. The connection was there because people are very busy online. They're kind of lazy. I'm saying that jokingly, but it's because we're so bombarded in the online stuff. Everybody wants it. There's so much noise out there that you're just trying to like survive and keep your head afloat. So what we're doing now is a case in point of we're creating content, and I encourage everybody to go and figure out a way to capture content about your business or what you do or what you'd like to be good at later on in life. Maybe you're thinking, I'd really like to have a cooking show. Cooking is kind of cool. It's a passion of mine. Or photography. I love photography. If I had to have another career that I would choose, I would pick going into photography. Start planting the seed now and start creating or populating one of your accounts. And there's no reason why you can't use a platform of choice. Like for me, I use Instagram purely for my personal photography. I don't do business there. I don't put business posts. I don't talk about my consulting or MTech or anything. It is just my photography posts being collected there and shared. So you might want to do that. Like start up something up, start planting the seed to start building up a following and stuff. And there's strategies there. And then eventually you might be able to do something with it. Anyways, I've been blabbing on a lot here. I don't know if you have another thing that you want to talk or ask me, but that's kind of the story and history of where I've gone and why I'm here and why I've pivoted to video.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, David. And I just want to demonstrate something here. And what I want to demonstrate is, by the way, your volume could probably come up about 5% if you want. But here's the thing.
Never satisfied.
Yeah, here's the thing. We're trying to demonstrate how, one of the things, as you know, David, is this thing called compressor, right? And our voice, as it goes loud and as it goes soft, it's tricky to get the right level unless you have the help of compressors and all that. But anyway, we won't get into that. But here's the thing, David. Let's just demonstrate for our view very quickly. I'm going to show how we could just be talking in a very informal way. So I'm going to go and do something here just for fun, okay? This is just sometimes, David, can you hear me now?
Yep, we're good.
Sometimes as you're interviewing, you can just look at the camera in a sort of almost like looking at your guest, I guess, right? So you get all these different angles that's happening. And it takes the pressure off a little bit, doesn't it? It takes the pressure off the trying to present, trying to come across as if it's a presentation. So sometimes a sort of a side view is actually an interesting kind of way to go with that as well, right?
Oh, it is. And actually, people get very nervous if they think people are looking at them and they're looking directly at camera. We see this in our studios all the time when we bring people in. A lot of even professional presenters have difficulties speaking to camera and looking directly at a lens or a person. They find it, I don't know what it is, but it's almost like they think that they have to elevate and be perfect or something in their message. So this side view interview style that you're demonstrating here, it gives comfort to people. Yeah. And it emphasizes that it's conversational.
Yeah. So, and of course, what you need to do is turn on the microphone of every camera. That's a demonstration of how it happens, folks. When you have multiple cameras and they all have different microphones, make sure the microphone follows the camera.
Yeah, that's right.
So, David, tell us a little bit more about your photography. You mentioned photography, and you have fantastic photography. This may be a great time to do. We played the your vacation video at the very beginning there. Tell us about that, and tell us about your photography in general.
The passion for me with photography, and I don't consider myself at all an artistic person. The passion there is the technical challenge that it takes to capture a certain shot, what you're seeing, by using manual settings. So a lot of people think that when they take a picture with their camera, that the picture that they end up with, if they didn't do any editing or processing, is exactly what they saw and what they captured. And then they get disappointed. So they buy different cameras because they like the way the pictures end up afterwards. Boy, the water looks much more blue there, and the sky looks more blue, and the grass looks more green, and the trees look more green. So I like that camera better. But all it is that the cameras are making these adjustments on color and saturation and the different color levels and automatic white balance and the timing that they use for how long your aperture is open and how wide open the aperture is for how much light is let into the camera. And they don't understand any of that, so they don't know how to capture something. Case in point, my true passion, going all the way down into photography, is astrophotography time-lapse, specifically time-lapse of the Milky Way. And the reason for that is because not just anybody can do it. It's very technical and complicated to capture a Milky Way time-lapse that looks great, and not just capture those shots, but then render them and compile it into a video that you can watch. There is so much math and calculation, and the sky has to be just right. The moon has to be at the right. The Milky Way has to be visible, especially the galactic core, which is what I really love. To get the colors to pop, you have to have your long exposures. Your camera has to be on a tripod. In fact, just so that people know, for me to capture a 10-second video clip of the Milky Way moving through the night, it takes 2.5 hours of time-lapse photos to capture that 10-second video clip. And the reason for that is because every frame picture is 30 seconds, and you need at least, say, 300 seconds worth to capture, like for 300 frames, to capture 10 seconds worth. And if you do the math, you'll see that it's 2.5 hours to capture all of those pictures that you needed in order to put it together. Because it's all based on frame rates. We call it 30 FPS, 30 frames per second, or whatever your smoothness your video is going for. So the joke around here that we have in the office is that there are very few people who know how to use the M button on a DSLR, which is manual mode. And that's where the passion comes in for me from a technical point of view, is being able to capture those things and play with it. And then the next thing is, if you did get into video and whatnot, there's color correction, there's the right audio and background, like music track. Then there's timing your video clips to certain beats within the video, the audio clip that you're doing, the music. There's maybe you're doing text overlays, and then there's background sounds. Like, this is like audio engineering of, do you hear the waves? Do you hear birds? Do you hear like crickets? Like, do you hear the wind rustling through the leaves in the trees? And all of that enhances the video. And people don't realize that, like, subliminally, if you start paying attention to commercials that people do for new products and stuff, there's certain sounds that have come across from Hollywood or wherever on swooshes or the Matrix sound or like transitional things that really enhance the viewing of the video that you're looking at. And that's a whole art as well. It's not just capturing that stuff, but then how do you put together the final piece to present it to people? And people don't realize that you put together a 30-second or 1-minute video that you do, just like you saw at the beginning of this with my Tofino trip. how many hours of work and capturing and timing the right clips in the music go into putting together that 60-second compilation that people could then share out. I mean, and a lot of people say, is it worth it? Do you get any money off that? Is there any like revenue? And it's like, no, and a lot of it is just personal satisfaction, and it's a memory. So it's a memory that you will always have and be able to share and keep for down the road. I see you're throwing up a time-lapse reel that I put together last year. And this very much demonstrates Milky Way time-lapse, which honestly is the pinnacle in my opinion. And what you'll notice in this video too is there's another thing, they call it sort of the holy grail transition that occurs, where if you have daylight, like a day to night or night to day transition that occurs in your videos, your time lapses, that's very difficult to do because of exposure times. An exposure during daylight is like a fraction of a second. An exposure at night is 25 seconds. Like we're talking exponentially different magnitudes for time frame. And then the next, so in this case, I was also playing, in order to see the Milky Way, a very challenging thing was where it was going to be, because I wanted it positioned above the mountain peaks. And so there's software that you can use to help you know at what time and what viewpoint are you going to see the Milky Way and the galactic core. But not only that, it was the moonlight. It happened to be a full moon, and the moonlight really throws off, because moonlight at full moon is almost like daylight when you're doing long exposure photography during a time lapse. And you see the moon cast over, and then the clouds and the mist, because I was so high in elevation. I was on the peak of another mountain to photograph a mountain peak in the distance. And I was south facing in order to have the Milky Way appear, just at the right point. I don't know where you're at there, but
I'm going to hit play here.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit play here. You really touch on the idea of, in any discipline, the moment you try to go for excellence, there's all kinds of details that you have to understand and manage, right? So let's enjoy this time lapse video here. Fantastic. So tell us, my friend, how long ago, when did you get into time-lapse photography? Was it a recent phenomenon?
I would say it was approximately 6 or 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I got into some DSLR photography, like what for me is my technical photography. I got into it quite heavily starting in about 2008, 2009. Mm-hmm. And time-lapse to me was kind of the next step. It was something that was different, and not just anybody could do it. In fact, there's a lot of people who try to do time-lapse photography, and they use the software that does it all for them, and it just doesn't look good to me. It's not polished. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's okay and it's good, but it's not. I wanted to get and elevate to the next level was what I was trying to achieve. And it's, again, for personal satisfaction. I'm not using this to brag or make money off of it or sell it or whatever. it honestly is, I feel really good about having captured those moments and achieved it. And it kind of gives me goosebumps to see a Milky Way time lapse. For me is like honestly the ultimate. Like it's just like, wow, that is just so awesome. And I remember it triggers my memories of where I was when I made those captures and the whole environment and what I was doing and maybe the friends I was with during those long hours in the middle of the night. I remember those moments.
Wow, that is just so awesome.
So that would be photography. So now I don't know if you want to jump into this now. I'm kind of being aware of your time, but there's the whole world of 3D printing.
We have plenty of time, my friend. In fact, there's a couple questions that I want to bring up from our viewers here. Benita Peterson asked a couple of questions. And so her first question is, what are your top 3 marketing tips in regarding to using video to promote something? Now, I also want to add her next question, which is, what is the average attention span of viewers these days, and how do you effectively hold their attention? So we'll get to the first question here. I'll display it again. So tell us about that, David.
These are excellent questions, and everybody venturing into video, using video. So in this instance, it's what are the 3 marketing tips using video to promote something? So people are very visual, is what I have learned. And so what happened is, again, going back to the timeline analogy, you're doing this timeline and people are scrolling through. And what happens with is we kind of skim over words now. We even skim over images, but people's attentions are kind of grabbed, like you're like, hey, what's that? When you see movement, meaning there's a video that's embedded in the timeline post that you're scrolling. Now, tip, if you take a video and you only upload it to YouTube, and then you link that in, you paste that link into LinkedIn or into Facebook, when a person scrolls on their timeline, the video will not automatically play. You have to mash the play button in order for the video to start going. Otherwise, it just looks like an image. However, if you also take that video, the same video, and you repurpose it, so you take this piece of content that you created, this video. By the way, I think that YouTube is an excellent video library. I think all of your videos should be uploaded to your YouTube channel, and you should work at that and make it your library. But then I think you should also take those good videos, if you have the time, and upload it natively into Facebook. So Facebook allows you to upload pictures or videos directly into their platform. And the reason behind that is when somebody goes and scrolls on their timeline and there's a video that's natively uploaded in Facebook, it will automatically start playing. So that's tip number 1, because now you've got movement. Tip number 2 is if they just see a bobbing head, they don't hear anything because audio is disabled automatically on videos that are played on platforms. So you might want to consider using closed captioning or text overlays on the screen that helps explain to people. Keep in mind that the people are probably watching Netflix, binge watching a TV show, their favorite series, while doing this, and they're multitasking. So they're not listening to what is on the screen. So if it's not obvious and you only have a person that's talking, the bobbing head, and there's nothing coming out of their mouth because the audio is off, you're not really getting your message across. So try to complement it with what we call B-roll, complementary video clips that have something other than you talking, and that's all it is. The other thing that I would do is I would say, don't just create a video and put it on one platform, but repurpose it everywhere. There's this amazing thing that you can do where you can take a video, put it on YouTube, post it also on LinkedIn, post it also on Facebook, post it also on Instagram, wherever you want, put it into Twitter, but then get the audio track transcribed, all of the words. And you can, if you don't want to do this, there's a service called rev.com, which is stupid inexpensive. It's only like $1 a minute to transcribe your audio. And most videos, when you do an interview, are only 1 or 2 minute videos. Take that text and then paste that into your posts or paraphrase it. So make it a blog post, make it an article on the website, and say, as per this video and give a link to the video and cut and paste all of the text that you had from that video so that they understand why it sounds very conversational and it doesn't sound like proper English. And then what that has done is given you a boost when it comes to SEO, search engine optimization, because Google and other search engine platforms don't understand video. They're not going to go looking in video and figuring out, is this relevant content to what your website is about? But they understand blogs. And blogs are text that get added to the search algorithms so that you can have additional content that's relevant to what your business does on your website. So here's another tip on that, is do that on a regular basis, once a week, once a month, because it shows Google and people who go and visit your website that the content changes. It's not this, there's a psychological thing I feel when you go to a website and it looks like it's the same old website, nothing's changed on it for the last 5 years. And then you start to question the content within. You're like, well, geez, I don't know. Maybe they're not really open right now. Maybe these hours of operation are not really accurate. Maybe they don't actually do this after hours service anymore. And you start to question it. And you don't even want to reach out to them and fill their contact form on their website because you're like, well, I don't know, maybe it was a fly-by-night company and this website and company doesn't really exist because I'm not feeling like they exist. Even your own clients who deal with you, if they go to the website and they're like, hey, something's new, there's a new picture on there, they'll trust your content that much more because it feels like it got updated, like somebody is maintaining the content. And that's what video content, going back to Benita's question, can do for you, is by injecting new content into the algorithm. Do you think Google goes and crawls everybody's websites on the internet? The millions and millions of websites are out there. No, they only crawl it based on a frequency of what they think that your content changes. The more often that your content changes, and that's what blogs are good for, will increase the amount of times that your website gets crawled for new relevant keywords. So the other tip on that too is do not get discouraged by the number of views and lack of comments that you're going to see on these videos. Even this podcast right now, there might only be, I haven't looked at the numbers, there might only be one person watching it live. It might only be Benita. And you know what? It doesn't matter because we're capturing content that's then going to get evergreen. It's going to get repurposed and it's going to be given new life. And we're also, Dune made an impression on all the people who follow him on platform, on Facebook, because when Dune went live, it notified those people and said, Dune with Friends is now live. It tells people that. And that in itself is an impression to people. It's a paid reminder that Dune is there and Dune's an expert. Dune is doing this stuff. Even though they didn't click on it, they didn't interact with it, they didn't heart it, it still has value. And you can't measure that. You cannot measure the value of a post that you do on a regular basis or your blog based on saying, well, only 2 people clicked on it, so it was a fail. That's not true.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, David. And again, as you alluded to earlier, really out of sight is out of mind, isn't it? If you are never seen or never heard, and then one day you just call them up and say, hey, I'm looking for some opportunity. Have you heard of anything? They haven't been hearing, or you're not top of mind. So you want to be top of mind. Now, you mentioned a couple of things. In terms of the, again, evergreen, I upload this to YouTube as well. And as you mentioned, YouTube is fantastic. Now, Facebook loves Facebook Live video. So this is going to be remaining on Facebook as a Facebook Live. Facebook loves that. But on LinkedIn, for example, if we were to share on LinkedIn, YouTube would be a good candidate for that. If you're going to embed it into a website, some or all of it, YouTube is a great platform for that. So certainly we do that as well.
YouTube is the best library, I think. And remember, people forget that Google owns YouTube. Number one, when you upload something to YouTube, it's instantly in, like within minutes, it's in the search engine results, like in the algorithm for the words. And people don't realize this, but last year it flipped where there are now more searches that occur daily on YouTube than there are searches that occur on Google. People get trapped in the YouTube rabbit hole, I call it, and they spend more time and search for, and guess what the number one search term is in YouTube? How to. How to, by far, if the title of your video is how to cook an egg, in a plastic bag in boiling water while camping, how to fix your car radiator, how to self-service your furnace, or how to check on your hot water tank and relight your pilot light. Those are videos that I'm talking about, that you're giving away advice for free that help establish you, but also from Google and YouTube's perspective, give relevant content to elevate their trust and your SEO, your positioning within the search algorithm on where you're at. And you'll never be able to say how much impact that got by judging the views or the clicks or whatever. Do not judge that. Also, here's another thing I've learned with YouTube in general or whatever. If you put out a video, you're empowering your own staff, your relatives, your family and friends to give them nuggets of content that they can share out to their networks on when they say, hey, do you know a plumber? Do you know a guy who can help me this? Do you know a computer guy? Then they can share out that link in their networks, and they become your promoters. They become your cheerleaders out there and advocates for your service. It also gets them to know more about what it is that you do, because I don't know, everybody seems to be busy on keeping up with what everybody's doing online and what business and what things they're up to. And you're giving them nuggets that they can go and look at and share themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How to is like you said, that's why a lot of people title their training sessions "How to," and sometimes their book, right? Their book, they would say some title, and then they would say "How to," blah 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 blah. So the word "how," those words are very powerful words. Now, I want to go to another area. Tell us about the book that you wrote and why you wrote it, and are there more books coming, my friend?
I've written many other ebooks and different articles and stuff like that. I don't know if I want to go through the time that was required in writing a book. Like, it was a massive time investment. But as going back to one of the many hats that I wear, one of them is being a professional speaker and also, doing consulting. And I do small to mid-sized business consulting, but I also do consulting for large enterprises. And there's something to be said about street cred. So they start looking to, once you got to get in the door with some people, whether it's for speaking or whatever, and you have to differentiate yourself. And that's where degrees and diplomas, industry certifications, and whether you wrote a book, because you're an expert on the subject when you write a book. And that was kind of the case, excuse me, with me writing the book, is I needed to establish myself as an expert. And it honestly did help gain more speaking engagements, because I think at the end of the day, when they're looking at a pile of papers and they're trying to figure out which speaker are they going to have speak at their event or whatever, it's just another one of those check marks that you can help differentiate, because there's so many good people out there. Everybody is playing in the same space. That's the one thing that it's kind of a negative thing and a positive thing that the internet has done to us, is it really leveled the playing field and got a lot more players in the game. Yeah. So I don't think I'm going to write another book. The book I wrote was on information technology, and specifically why I think consultants are important.
Yeah.
What's interesting is the whole tech field, ever since it started, in my opinion, is still in its infancy. It hasn't matured like other industries, like medicine, like law, like even accounting. Why is it that businesses, when they have a problem, they will go out and get a specialist, and they will get somebody to consult or help them or whatever with their books? They'll pay a lawyer to help them with an agreement. They'll go out and get an engineer to go and help them with a diagram for building a bridge. It's a joke. But the point of the matter is that you go out and you get these experts. But yet I have found personal experience that when it comes to technology, people try to do it themselves. That the janitor happened to know how to turn on the computer. So, hey, you're the head of IT right now. Or my dog's friend's neighbor's cousin's daughter knows something about websites, and she's going to build me a website for free. Dude, you get what you pay for. Seriously, there are reasons why those things fizzle out and don't get the presence that they should on Google, because those people are not experts in that field. Not only that, but a consultant being brought on, and especially for when it comes to technology, I'm not looking to rack up a bunch of hours with an organization. In fact, most of the time I sell what's called a discovery meeting. It's an initial consultation. It's no more than 2 hours. It's a sit down, no agenda. We play 20 questions. I ask the questions. You give me answers. There might be some homework. But out of that initial consultation, you might gain tremendous value because I'm going to share with you things like, well, have you considered using this piece of software? It might actually make your life easier. Did you know about this appliance, this gadget? Have you checked into this technology? Why is it that this light is blinking red in your server room on your hard drive? Is it almost ready to die? Like, are you sitting on the edge of catastrophe? It's an outside opinion. I call it a lot of companies are stuck in a box. They're in their box of their software and their solution and their hardware, and that's the way they do business. And they haven't experienced other things, while a consultant gets to peek in other people's boxes and share that advice with you to say, have you considered this? Like, I remember when Dropbox first came out and I told somebody about Dropbox, it revolutionized the way they shared files with clients in their business and dealing with staff working from home and stuff. Like simple tips like that, which you wouldn't have known otherwise, and goes a long way and might even save you it would save you some money. It probably will increase your business or make you more efficient or whatever. And that really is the essence of my book. Now, on that note, you can't just go out and get just any computer guy these days because, as I said, technology is kind of at its infancy. It's not really mature, but it has forked out into tons of subspecializations. You now have tech appearing in law, in medicine, robotics, in engineering, in, everyday veterinary sciences. Like, we are seeing technology's tentacles go and spread into every other main industry. And so therefore, those are the specialization skills that you're looking for, is somebody who's familiar with your industry and technology and how to marry the two together. My daughter right now is in medicine at the U of A, and it's interesting to see the different people that they're accepting into the program. And what I mean by that is they're taking people from different walks of life. Now, you might think that's a disadvantage. I don't have the background of sciences and the biology and physiology, and I don't understand all that stuff. But think about the different points of view if you brought in an engineer. I'm just throwing it out there, into medicine, and they took that as a second degree. All of a sudden, maybe they're going to revolutionize new tools, new equipment, new MRIs, new prosthetics through 3D printing, nanobots to go in to inject and help seal yourself. Like, to me, that is like massively awesome to marry different industries together where I call it subspecializations, but it's where technology is getting into other disciplines. And that's what you should bear in mind. And that's what my book is about.
There you go. I can tell you're passionate about these things.
Yeah.
Let me bring it up so that people know. Again, I brought it up earlier and I just want to bring it up again. It's called the IT Survival Guide, of course, book written by you a while back. I do have a video that I want to run, my friend. As I run the video, we'll just enjoy it here. But if you want to chime in, feel free. But it's a pretty exciting video. So lots and lots of sounds, levels pretty high. So I'm going to bring it in here.
I'm intrigued.
Here.
Yep.
SEO is the techie stuff. It's the structure. It's the underlying how you register it with Google. Things called the titles, the headings. Welcome to my cybersecurity course. The key is to protect yourself on a best effort basis with the knowledge that you gain. But remember that the bad guys do this full time, so they are professionals at what they do. What I'm cautioning you is don't use the same password. Don't make it so that your bank PIN is the same as your luggage tag, which is the same as your door code opener, which is the same as your online password for your accounts. Don't use that. It's too common.
When we're talking about human error, that's what it comes down to. You can have all the cybersecurity in the world, but if somebody clicks on it, it's over.
Absolutely, 100% it's human error.
SEO without content marketing is a body without a soul. That saying that says the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know is so true. And technology is not just IT by itself. It now spreads into everything in our lives. There are now more videos viewed daily on YouTube than there are Google searches that occur every day. Think about that. That's massive. You can put a power meter that says every single time this light switch is turned on and off, record it to a Google spreadsheet. And that way you can tell your kids how much electricity they're costing you when they leave the lights on.
You're watching the morning news on Global Edmonton.
Joining us now, we have online security expert David Papp.
Security expert David Papp.
Tech expert David Papp.
Tech expert David Papp joins us now from Edmonton in Canada.
I want to introduce you to David Papp.
David Papp.
David Papp.
David Papp, who is an online security expert, joins us now with some advice on how to stay connected safely. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
Nice to see you again. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, you should get somebody else other than the person who developed your website just as a second set of eyes, because nothing's perfect. There's no such thing as 100% secure online.
And I just want you to be aware that there are many things that you should be doing online. And if you are not, you need to get some help or pay somebody else to do it for you so that you are protected online from the different threats and risks that do exist.
We strongly recommend using a VPN, which is called a virtual private network. So you've got these apps, you've got these programs or email that are communicating to the internet, and they're going through a tunnel. And anybody can look into it. But if you use a VPN, nobody can see it. You've got the blackout blinds on. But of course, people are like, well, is it still worth it? Well, sure, it depends on how you look at it, because the value of those Bitcoins theoretically is going to go up. It was pennies, now it's worth, $10,000, $20,000. Also, interestingly, I'll tell you why people still have to mine, why mining is a requirement. So these mining farms that you're seeing being established, if you follow the news, when people go and create these things, they are next to substations, and they are massive, huge, power-hungry things.
When it comes to technology, I would like you to have a different view on things, to understand and approach technology in a different way, because I'm telling you, if you're thinking that the technology we have nowadays with our personal tricorders that we have in our hand and Google at our fingertips with this magic box that has all the answers, you have no idea what's coming next. I'm very excited about it. I think there are some precautions that need to go in play, but I really do believe that there's some really exciting things that are coming in our near future when it comes to technology, and I'd love you to have an open mind on understanding this is what it can do for me, this is how it can benefit me, and I don't need to understand how it works.
Well, fantastic. Fantastic. So you've been around various news media and back again and again. They must love you, and obviously you're doing something right for them to keep inviting you back again and again. Tell us about that experience of being on various news network and
It's been a lot of fun. Honestly, it started for me when I was very young, and I got into doing presentations for people. I guess it just didn't bother me being in front of people. And then when bulletin board systems came, their Edmonton Police Service approached us, the network that I was part of, and wanted to put online the top 10 most watched. And the interesting thing,
I don't know what it is, David, but your voice.
I have a very serious echo.
Oh, hold on.
We have the technology.
Okay, there you go.
Check. We're good?
Yeah.
I can't hear myself. We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. So they wanted to put the top 10 most wanted online, and this was when there was BBSs, before the internet even existed. And so the idea behind this was that they were very technology ignorant, and they wanted to raise some money. And I used to volunteer as a youth with Crime Stoppers. They used to have telethons where they would go on and they would try to raise money, and people were on the phones, manning the phones while people dialed in, and there was presentations going on. And I got into that. And so what's interesting is if you look at my history, I used to volunteer a fair amount with different police services. I would teach them on data forensics. I would teach them on basic computer stuff, how to preserve digital evidence, how the Internet 101, and how computers and emails and how you would track stuff. And I would fly all over North America doing these presentations. And it really was the beginning of my speaking career. But on that note, it established a reputation for me when it came to cybersecurity and internet and computers and stuff like that. So what's an interesting thing is when you volunteer with an organization, people always wonder why volunteer? And I'm saying it's one of the best things you could do. You meet different people, you get some industry experience. Yes, you're not getting paid for your time, and you feel good about it. But you're going to get some amazing contacts out of that, as well as experience that will help you later on in life. So case in point, me volunteering with the police law enforcement agencies so much, when other people came by later on in life, and these are some very large enterprise clients and small businesses that would say, we have a problem, we need some help, who can you recommend? Well, guess whose name came to the forefront and was one of the first recommendations when they needed somebody to help them out with whatever cybersecurity or internet or data computer problem. And that's where my reputation kind of grew. So over time, your name, if you build up a reputation, gets associated with different keywords, with different groups of people. You'll be known as, lately with some people, I'm known as the online marketing guy. Other people, I'm known as the cybersecurity guy. Other people, I'm known as the Cisco routers and internet guy. And other people know me as the used computer guy. And you get all these different names for yourself and associated with different groups and stuff. And as a consultant and an entrepreneur, this is very good to build up your networks and your reputation. This takes time. It definitely takes time. And so the media started tapping into me. Anytime there was a problem or a comment on the latest internet hack, how did that computer or that website get hacked? How did these guys get this data? How did this person get scammed? What happened with this thing? Your name gets to the top of the list. And honestly, even reporters and such, they're so busy these days, and their jobs, and there's been cutbacks on the number of people who are working in the industry. They're too busy to go out and try to find somebody new or find some experts. So they keep dipping in the same pot. And if you keep yourself at the forefront of their mind, again, by helping them out, giving them tips, friending them on Facebook or LinkedIn, and they see your content that's dripped out with the whatever, over time, you will become their go-to expert on said topic, and you make it easy for them. Here's another thing. A lot of people will complain and say, oh my gosh, it's early in the morning, and why am I dressing up and getting all formal and getting up early in the morning just to drive somewhere, to go into a studio for 2 minutes, that then I'm done and I leave, and it's taken me 2 hours of my time plus all the preparation, or 3 hours. Why do that? Because it builds huge trust. You're in their Rolodex. And if you make things easier for them, they're more likely to bring you back. And so that's what I've learned, is make it as easy as possible for them. I even supply them with talking points. I supply them with references. I supply them with links and a background story and some good information. I give it to them on a silver platter and say, here you go. I think this is a good one. And they'll actually, a lot of times they'll use it. Sometimes, they won't. They're busy and they're on to something else, or there's some breaking story. But there are ways of making yourself an expert. And the other thing that's a huge one is when you're sitting down, and very much when you're on the news and they're interviewing you, it's about eye contact. Don't let your eyes wander, because there's a lot of stuff to see in a studio. So that's number one. Number two, you're making eye contact with the person who's interviewing you the entire time, because you never know when the camera's going to switch and put focus on you. But also help them. They don't always know what questions to ask you, and they have a limited amount of time because they're listening in their earpiece, getting feedback from the producer on what's going on. Yet you have to play with it, and you have to end. in a lot of cases, I have a tremendous amount of information I would like to share, but you only have time to share one little nugget and then cut it off. And then like allow them to decide if they want to probe you for more information, or they're going to go on to the next topic or next question or whatever. Like you have to give them the opportunity to participate. And it's not just that. It's one of the reasons I hate panels, because anytime you're sitting on an industry panel on some event or even virtually, sure enough, there's one guy or two people who monopolize all the airtime. And if there's not a good MC on board or a panel host that's moderating this and cutting people off, all the time goes to that one person because they just don't know how to shut up.
And sometimes one of the panelists is actually looking in the wrong direction altogether. Like, you're over there and they're looking over there, right?
Yep.
Oh, that's cool. So David, I want to talk a little bit more about your other creativity. You've invented a number of things. You're a bit of an inventor. Tell us about this inventor background. And you made some products that actually are selling internationally. And tell us about that journey, my friend.
That is very true. With my family and relatives, we play a lot of games. We love board games, card games, love games. And one thing over time, I used to find myself creating these little racks for holding your pieces, holding your cards and stuff. And the analogy I would use is if you play a game like Tile Rummy, where you've got the little racks that hold all your tile pieces and such, right? Well, I was at the right place at the right time, put it that way, where 3D printers were just starting to come out. And 3D printers were getting somewhat accessible and affordable. And so I decided that I was going to prototype some plastic stacking modular pieces to act as this game holding racking system that you could grow it as big and as wide as you wanted to hold cards and games and game pieces and whatnot. Because let's face it, when you're playing games, like one joke we always have is with young kids. They can't hold all their cards in their hand, so they lay them down on the table and they say, mommy, daddy, don't look at my hand, but they have to have it right on the table. Or, if you've got elderly people who have dexterity issues and they physically can't hold it. Or you're sitting with a bunch of people around a game table and they want to enjoy their beverages and their snacks, and you don't want to be fiddling around with your game pieces. Or another situation is if you have a very limited table space, but you have a lot of game pieces. You may have some pieces like a game Ticket to Ride, where everybody needs to see the 5 trains that are the communal tickets, right? That everybody gets to see. So I decided I was going to come up with this stacking system. At first, I was making these out of pieces of wood, and I was putting felts on them and cutting them out. And then I wanted to come up with a single piece that was modular, that could didn't have other components to it. No electronics, no add-ons, you need 5 end pieces and 2 main pieces and 5 base pieces. I didn't want to get into that. I wanted one universal game piece that you could do anything with it. And that was kind of the birth of this UberStacks idea. I did 3D prototyping Dune on that for probably 2.5 years to get it right, to play with it, because it just took long, and I was in no rush, and I was also funding it myself. Like it was a side project for fun. So I was learning with that, and then at some point I decided this is great. I'm happy with it. It works. I think I can do something with it. So I started exploring, how do you mass manufacture something? Because you're not going to 3D print it. Let me get you this. If everybody doesn't know this, 3D printers are very slow, very slow. So
3D probably stands for 3 days, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You're not going to 3D print these things en masse to sell them out there. And so I started checking into it, and I learned that there's this process called injection molding. And what injection molding is in a nutshell is you create these metal clamshells. They're your molds. And inside what happens is it's two pieces like this, and there's a machine that opens and closes the molds. And as it closes, the molds are heated and molten plastic is shot into it. It's injected into the side. And when it opens, it cools and your plastic piece falls out exactly the way it needs to look. And that's how you mass manufacture on these machines, like thousands of pieces rather than doing one-offs. So I then learned the hard way. All of this is self-taught on where do I go? How do I get the molds? How much is it going to cost? What about the different colors that I would do? How do I package it? How do I get a barcode and a UPC barcode on my packaging? How do I get it? What price do I do this? How much is it going to cost? How much is it going to ship? Where am I going to fulfill these things? And so I ended up doing some crowdfunding campaigns on Kickstarter. And I got that to help out and fund the initial mold and the first run of it. And it also built a following for me because it's kind of marketing to get some people out there so that they're your first people who are buying your product and help you fund that initial run. And then I ended up learning, and that was many years ago, by the way, that was probably 5 years ago. And since then, I've learned to have deals with producing houses, with distributors, with retailers, direct to consumer. I have an e-commerce site that sells it. I have a fulfillment warehouse located in the US that helps me with the shipping. I have manufacturing located in outside of Shanghai in China, where I've actually visited the factory. I've visited my warehouse in the US a couple times. I've learned all the intricacies of how do the costing work, what are the expectations from distributors and retailers on what margin they get, what type of what's the packaging got to look like and the barcoding and the labeling that you got to do on it. How do you market these things? How would you get it onto things like selling it on even on eBay and Amazons and e-commerces and stuff like that? Like, it's been a huge, huge learning experience of going from idea to conception to development into full-on marketing and sales that I've actually done. I do usually 1 or 2 new orders a year for this product to go into the warehouse, and they store it on pallets for me and do my fulfillment.
If you love to play board games
myself. And on that note, just so that people are aware, like, I've manufactured probably close to 500,000 pieces of Uber stacks to date. And I even created a companion thing called Uber Trays, which connects into it to hold your game chits and tokens and looks like a little dish, but it interlocks and connects like Lego in order on these game pieces. And to me, this has just been fun because I love 3D printing. I love technology. I love online marketing. I love branding. I love technology and figuring out how to do this stuff. Like, it was a marriage of all of these experiences and ideas in order to get this out there. And it's helping me personally as an entrepreneur break the time equals money equation. It's something that a lot of people get caught in. And I personally, for my own future retirement and whatever, want to learn how to get into alternate income streams, right? And how to not have to do time equals money on direct sales for this product. And I'm now past that because I put so much time and energy into getting it established to that point. Not an overnight success. A lot of experience that went into this, a lot of discussions, a lot of calls, a lot of planning. So I don't want people to think that it's easy. And people do come to me because they all have an idea for a great new app or product or whatever. And they say, can you help me? And I don't think they are aware and realize of how much it's going to take to get it to, fruition. Anyways, it looked like you queued up a video.
Did I hear it correctly that you've sold over 500,000 units, David?
Pretty close, yes.
Yeah. So
internationally, in many different countries around the world.
That's pretty awesome. So this could happen. One day you would be walking, in Brazil somewhere, and somebody would say in Brazilian, I don't know how to say that. They would say, "Oh, David, who's invented the Uber tax, Uber stacks, I should say." But you could be famous, my friend. You could be famous.
I do have friends who comment all the time that they walk into a game store and they see it and they get all proud and excited that they take photos and they send it to me.
Hey, you know what? I should have thought, why did I try Brazilian? I'm going to say, imagine if you were in Vietnam and one of those Vietnamese guys who you've never met before, they would come up to you and say, anh là anh David, phải không? Anh làm cái đó hay lắm đó. Tôi thích lắm á.
Exactly what he said.
There you go. Well, I want to play this little video clip here, my friend. I'm gonna just organize the screen here, and well, more than around 500,000 sold. That is an awesome, as you said, not overnight success.
If you love to play board games, you're probably familiar with cluttered game tables.
You hear?
Between the game board, a handful of cards, stacks, and piles of game pieces, not to mention beverages and
your closed
snacks,
caption.
that table can be a real mess.
Yes.
Uber Stacks, the simple solution to enhance your game playing experience. An innovative, easy to build, completely stackable game piece accessory that becomes a sturdy card, tile, or game piece holder. Suddenly, you are hands-free, and the table chaos is dramatically reduced. It's as easy as this. Every piece of Uber Stacks has pegs and holes that allow it to connect with other pieces. With every package of Uber Stacks, you have 6 pieces to work with. Just 2 pieces for the most simple configuration. One piece is used as a base to sit on the table, and the other snaps in to become a rack to hold your cards or tiles. Carefully line up the pegs with the holes, push them together, and it's ready to go. With more Uber Stacks pieces, you can construct more elaborate racks. You can customize your configuration to suit the game you're playing. Build it high, build it wide, it's up to you. Once you see how it works, the possibilities are limited only by how many Uber Stacks pieces you have and your imagination. As you can see, there's a selection of colors to choose from. And it looks great when you match Uber Stacks to your game pieces. Uber Stacks, the innovative, interlocking, stackable, universal game piece holder.
Fantastic. Wow. That's exciting stuff, my friend. How long did it take to go from you had an idea, you're going to pursue it, and then to the point where it's out to mass production?
That's a very good question. I would say that it probably took about, it was within less than a year. And the reason I say that is that I had to then go and solicit a bunch of different companies in order to figure out how much was this injection mold going to cost me, who could make it for me, and then what was the per unit cost going to be for manufacturing it. And of course, at that point, you have to commit to some minimum quantities. So I had to come up with some numbers. I had to figure out what price point I was going to sell this. And then at that point, I did the crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter, which once it got to the goal that I was looking for, then I was able to commit to the factory to make the molds and begin the process of manufacturing. And so keep in mind that there's some overlapping timelines that happen in here. You do need to be invested when you go down this road. Like there's a point of no return where you've got your final AutoCAD drawing of your 3D piece. You've got the factory who says that they're going to be able to make the injection mold, and you know what the costs are going to be. And there seems to be a market adoption, right? That the price point you chose for the package for these pieces, people are willing to pay for it, because that's kind of what you're convincing people on Kickstarter is that it's a good price and they're going to get this product and they're willing to back your idea. It's kind of the same idea I say in timelines when it comes to writing a book. The hardest part for me to write a book was figuring out what am I going to write about and flushing out the table of contents. That probably took me 1.5 years. Once I actually sat down to actually write the book, it was done in less than 6 months, because you knew you had the outline of exactly what it is that you needed to talk about. So there's a lot of homework in something like this with a new product. And depending on your motivation and your time and your investment, you can determine whether you want to have it accomplished within a matter of 6 months or whether you want to stretch it out.
Wonderful. Let's take a look at another video. Tell us about this elevated tabletop gaming with Uber Stacks.
So the goal behind this video was to create an ad that, what I learned is that when you have a new product that doesn't have brand recognition out there, you need to visually show people and explain to them what it is that the product does so that they understand within a minimal amount of time. And the goal behind the video was also so that whether or not they were looking at it on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, LinkedIn, in their timeline, and they scrolled in and queued in, started watching the video at any point during the video, that it would make sense to them on what it is. See, a frequent problem with a lot of product videos out there is if you didn't start watching it right at the beginning, you're kind of lost on what it's about or what problem it's solving. And that's what this video is about.
Wonderful. Let's take a look here, folks. Wonderful. Cool.
So again, the goal there was, people have short attention spans. You don't know when they're going to clue into your video. Does it visually demonstrate what it does? And not only what it does, but in my case, the number of colors. Because as I progressed with this product, I have expanded it where it's in 10 different colors. And then on that note, people don't realize this, but when you're doing a universal piece like this that has these pegs and holes and has colors, you need consistency. So you need to make sure that as you do future production runs with this, that the colors look the same between pieces and that they still interlock with each other, even with the old pieces. And there's something to be said about like controlling tolerance and quality control when you're manufacturing. These are all things that I've learned, as I go through this entire new product that I've unleashed to the world.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that, David. And I want to ask you a different question, coming back to the speaking side of things, coming back to the video technology. Tell us more about, now I know you served as the Edmonton chapter of the Canadian Association Professional Speakers for years, actually. You've been the president there for a few years, of which I'm a member. And, we now are part of the Calgary chapter as well. Tell us a bit more about the speaking side and how it factors, how video factor into that.
Well, I mean, there's different aspects that I could answer that question. Number one, when you're a professional speaker, it's very clear that if you are trying to promote yourself to other people, that they like to see a sample of what it is that you're like on stage, your speaking styles, your personality and whatnot. And that's where we get into this notion of demo reels. So a lot of professional speakers out there will create some demo reels for themselves. And so that's something that I immediately latched on to based on my passion for online marketing and video and whatnot. Was I started learning on how to create demo reels for professional speakers. And I've probably created with me and my team well over probably about 40 of them to date, demo reels for professional speakers. And it's an interesting process and evolution as time progresses on the things I've learned with respect to that, on how to do the storytelling and how to provide personality and, stitching in different moments of stage and interview and whatnot. So then you get into how do you promote that? So there's assistance on online marketing of where do you put these videos? How do you get extra eyeballs on it and get it in front of the right people? Do you pay for Facebook ads or Google ads to get, people to actually go to it and do pay-per-click advertising or YouTube pre-roll ads? And so that's sort of been my evolution of between mating like video and CAPS, professional speakers, and even myself as a professional speaker and the stuff that we do in our business. And it doesn't just apply to professional speakers. This applies to anybody out there who wants to promote their business or themselves on whatever their product or service or topic or it is right now. In fact, a lot of people right now are pivoting so that they're creating virtual presenting videos, virtual demo reels to show that they can handle speaking like this in front of a camera on a Zoom session or whatever the platform may be. And they're trying to demonstrate what they do and how they can be engaging and what their message might be like and whether they're standing or they're sitting and what their environment is and whether they're using green screen or not, et cetera, and audience participation. So Capson has been, in my opinion, an amazing group of people, because everybody within CAPS across the Canada, and this is the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, they're all entrepreneurs. They're all in their own businesses. They all might do some other things, but they are in the business of, speaking professionally. And so they all have their own brand. They all have their own websites. They all have their own videos. They all have their own social media accounts. They all have their own, et cetera, et cetera. They're learning how to do this. They're learning how to price themselves. They have their own technology. They're learning how to do this and their studio setups and mixers and cameras and microphones. And I've loved talking to those people and collaborating with them and making great contacts across the country. And this is another example of establishing yourself as an expert in the field, number one. Number two, giving away your advice for free. Like you don't expect anything in an association like CAPS. People send me emails and do phone calls with me all the time, and it's fun to talk to people, learn about their scenario, and help them out. And there's something to be said about karma, right? At some point, you don't know how or when or why or where, but you help give good things to people, and good things will happen to you. So anyways, that's my thoughts on the whole marrying the two together.
Wonderful. Now, I would like to visit your YouTube channel here. Tell us a bit about MTech Digital YouTube channel and what you're up to with that, and some of the other threads that you have on there. I'm going to go ahead and bring it in here, and tell us about that.
Well, MTech Digital, as I indicated, is my personal company. I have staff, and we've been focusing on, in the last 12 years, on online marketing, web development, website apps. And I've done that for longer than that, but this was a big focus. And on that note, we are trying to practice what we preach, which is content marketing, dripping out content, helping people. It's a very slow thing, and it's more difficult to promote yourself as a business than it is as a person. Because the thing is, when you're a person, most people don't think that you have a hidden agenda. Like, they don't feel that they're being sold to. While you're a business, it has a taint to it. And I'm saying this in retrospect of what I've learned over the time, right, with doing this. I promote myself, we promote ourselves, MTech, as a digital agency, but I really dislike the term agency. We're like a one-stop shop that can help you with all your online marketing needs, whether it's managing online marketing campaigns, your branding, graphics design, web apps, programming, or YouTube or video content. And that, to me, is a big passion. And that's what the purpose behind you showing this YouTube channel here is. It's our library of our videos that we have produced that we're putting online. And so some of the things that I can see right now in some of the thumbnails are me and one of my staff, Greg, just having fun. We call it Between Two Browsers. It's this session that we sit there and we just riff about, we pick one question, and we've recorded a lot of these at once. It's always very efficient to sit down in a studio or your environment, whatever, and record multiple videos. And generally speaking, each video is one answer to one question. And then you slice them up, you brand them and whatever, and you drip them out one a week, one a month, whatever it is that you want. And you put out this new content. And then you take that, and when it goes out, I get notified, because we can pre-schedule all of these videos that go out. And then I go and post a link into my Facebook, into my LinkedIn and whatever, into different social media accounts. And it injects new life. It gives me something quick, because I'm very busy. You're managing many different things. You got a lot of stuff on the go. And to me, it's a good return on investment for the amount of time that I put into producing the videos and answering the questions, versus how much time it takes me to actually go and post them online on my different channels and remind people that I still exist. I'm still there. My account's not stale, and I'm still doing stuff on the internet. And every now and then you have a good video that you really like and it answers it, and you can embed those in your website, or you could use them as answers and examples to people that you're having discussions with, or emails, or trying to solicit as a new customer, whatever that may be. This becomes ammunition. It's part of your arsenal, your toolkit to use it to promote, because again, those videos are not selling anything. They're not promoting services. They're not saying, come and buy from me, come and look at us, we're totally awesome. It's not the point. We're actually giving value, and we're answering questions that we feel people might have and might even be embarrassed to ask.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And as we round the corner and wrapping this up here, David, were there topics that you want to talk about that we haven't gotten to yet, my friend?
It was pretty well-rounded, Dune. I mean, we could go on and on for a long time, but this way, I think we've covered a lot of ground.
There you go. Now, my next thing is, if you do sing, some of our guests sing as an outro to our program. So feel free to, kind of prepare a song in your mind there as I surprise you with that thought. But
okay.
I'm just kidding. But so here's the thing. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation here. And folks, you've been listening to Mr. David Papp, and the founder and CEO of not only MTech Digital, but also Michael Tech Corporation. I want to say it right. Did I say it right?
Yeah, Microtech Corporation.
Yeah, Microtech Corporation, which is the granddaddy of all of these different companies and initiatives that you started later on, such as MTech Digital and the evolution there. But tell us, my friend, as you kind of do this wrap up here, I'd like you to wrap up in however you like. Take your time, no rush here. And when you're done, just stay in the green room for another minute there. And But folks who are watching now or later, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your questions and comments, and thank you for your questions and comments later in the comment section, even after the video is the live video is done. Have a wonderful day, folks. Take good care of yourself. Take good care of one another. And here's David to take us out any which way he wants to.
I always like to end with a final tip. I do this in all my interviews when with other people. I say, give me one solid piece of advice. What's a power tip that you would end up with people? And mine is honestly, keep things simple. Focus on the basics and do the basics well. There's no need to complicate your setup with technology and all the bells and gadgets and they're like, what you're doing is you're making it more difficult because there's more maintenance, there's more upkeep, there's more that can go wrong. And honestly, if you can focus on having a solid foundation, solid bones framework for whatever it is that you're doing, it will make your life easier. It makes upkeep easier, and it will just overall, it's easier for you to conceptualize and maintain and use because it will always work. And if it doesn't work, the joke is always unplug it, plug it back in, and there you go.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, David. And have a wonderful rest of your day as well, my friend.
You too, dude.